Venerable brothers, Dhamma friends. So we are going to start the last Dhamma sermon of this Jhana Grove retreat. May you give your consent by saying Sadhu Sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Animittancha bhavehi mananusaya mujjah. Tato manabhi samaya pasanto charissati ti. Dear Venerable brothers, Dhamma friends, yesterday actually we have come to a certain level of the practice, basically discussing how one would develop the non-grasping state of mind, unassociated state of mind, to either with the Jhana practice or either with the Vipassana practice based on the mindfulness. And there onwards we discuss how one may attain to the signless state, Animitta Samadhi, by not paying attention to any signs, any particular object, and paying attention to nothingness or paying attention to emptiness, kind of a blankness, and then maintaining that purposely there for a while. So at the beginning it appears like artificial, appears like difficult, but when one engages with Vipassana practice more and more, so the letting go becomes more and more possible, natural, effortless. At the beginning it appears like difficult, but as you gain fair amount of wisdom, the wisdom plays a pivotal role here. So the wisdom helps us to abandon things, rather than holding things, rather than crowding the mind. Now wisdom helps us to keep the mind very clean, very clear, unattached, unbounded. So therefore, as we continue the Vipassana, so the letting go becomes natural. And in that sense, so you may be able to maintain an empty mind in an effortless manner. And if you, in such situation, if you make excess effort, that is detrimental to the practice in a way. So for example, you are trying to make a lot of effort, put in too much effort, and trying to attain the signless state of mind, then it will be very difficult and you can end up with various headaches and many other even bodily pains because we are going in the wrong direction. It is true that we have spent fair amount of time practicing hard and putting a lot of effort and maintaining a, say, strict schedule, maintaining a strict morality. All these things are very true, very essential as we continue the practice. But once we arrive this signless state, particularly, after developing fair amount of Vipassana and gain fair amount of wisdom, now you are able to maintain this unattached state. And while in that unattached state, non-grasping state, there is nothing to do. It's a matter of just being there. Not doing is the key. Rather than doing, now you just need to be. Just be. So once you familiarize with it, again when you want to attain to that, just be with it. And there also it has to be a more effortless way you have to attain there. Say for example, while on the cushion, you may be trying hard to attain to it. Assume that you couldn't make it, you give it up and then simply go to your chair and just looking very far without a particular object, without a particular aim. Naturally, probably you will attain what you need. That's the interesting part here. So previously, effort is essential, hard practice is essential, strenuous practice is essential, but now it happens the opposite way. Now you have to go in a more relaxed manner, more effortless manner. So let the practice take over rather than you putting unnecessary involvement. So in typical parlance, we simply say there is a doing kind of meditation, and now it's a matter of not doing kind of meditation, or just being kind of meditation. You let the meditation, let the practice to take over rather than you manipulating it. Something like that. That's why we can see in the Anapanasati Sutta, so there are two different approaches to develop enlightenment factors. The first approach is kind of a stepwise process, starting with mindfulness, then got into the investigation factor, the Dhammavichaya, then get into Viriya, the effort, then to Piti, the rapture, then Passaddhi, the tranquility, then say Samadhi, the concentration, and then to Upekha, the equanimity, kind of an ordered manner and a kind of a effortful manner. So that is where we start the development. But later, once you fairly recognize a non-grasping state of mind, while being there, now it's a matter of maximizing it, familiarizing it, being in it, dwelling in it. Now Buddha switched the development of the enlightenment factors to a different theme. As even yesterday we mentioned, now what you need to do is Sati Sambojjhangam Bhaveti Vivekanisitang, Viraganisitang, Nirodhanisitang, Vassagga Parinam. Dhammavichaya Sambojjhangam Bhaveti Vivekanisitang, Viraganisitang, Nirodhanisitang, Vassagga Parinam. He repeats to all the enlightenment factors like that. The idea is, therefore, we have to concern about the relaxation of the mind, calming down the mind, relaxing the mind. It is not a strictly focused attention now we need to maintain, rather open awareness, giving up things, releasing the mind, keeping the mind empty, keeping the mind objectless, not pointing it to any particular place, rather letting it be naturally open, unestablished, effortless. So now we need to switch to that area, switch to that theme. Otherwise, it's entirely in the wrong direction we are going in. Sometimes actually unknowingly people are keep trying on, keep putting too much effort, even when they arrive this state, then can end up with various difficulties. So we need to clearly understand this distinction, what happens as we progress in our practice. Now suppose one is continuing like that. Now let me take a very interesting story here. One time actually Buddha and the Sangha were dwelling in the Varanasi, Isipatana. You know that where Buddha delivered his first discourse. So Buddha and the Sangha was dwelling there. And typically in the morning, Sangha gathered, particularly the elder Sangha, they gather there and makes a fairly high, interesting Dhamma discussion. Talking of very interesting high themes, say some high attainments or some kind of a fairly deep Dhamma they are discussing. There is one young, we can say young monk there. He time to time interrupt. His name is called Hattisariputta. So he time to time interrupt this discussion. And there in the crowd, one Arahant called Kottita, Mahakottita. So he basically noticed this interruption made by Venerable Hattisariputta. And he simply intervened and he said, don't do it. So now these elderly monks are particularly in a deep discussion. So don't disturb like that. Just wait till they finish. So when this is said, there's a companion to Venerable Hattisariputta, and he simply explained to Venerable Mahakottita saying, Bhante, this Hattisariputta is quite capable. And once it is mentioned, Venerable Mahakottita, he being an Arahant, he say, you can't find out just by merely kind of an assumption what is the capacity, what is the capability of a monk. So he then go on to explain, when a particular monk is associating a good teacher, being with good companions, and he may be maintaining good sila, he may be maintaining good conduct, but once he be free from the group, free from the monastics, free from the teacher, he may again start associating so many unnecessary things. He may again start dwelling with lay people too much, associating too much, making intimate relationships, talking too much. So that ultimately caused to get further lust again and again into his mind. He might even disrobe. Not only that, then Venerable Mahakotis say, there could be a monk who could attain first jhana. So after attaining first jhana, he is actually happy about it, quite delighted about it, and overestimating about him. And now he start thinking, okay, I am a jhana practitioner. I am a one with the first jhana. I can master jhana now. And what happened is now, as a result of that, now he start associating too much the lay people, too much closing up, too much intimate relationships, too much talking, too much socializing. That caused to maybe to neglect his practice, and again the lust and various other defilements overcrowd him, and it can cause disrobing. So Venerable Mahakottita then explained the same thing to the second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. And then, interestingly, he mentioned like this. There may be a person, a monk, who already have the signless concentration. He has fairly practiced maybe vipassana, and he was able to attain the signless state of mind, and he's quite happy about it because he made a fair amount of progress in the practice. He is happy about what he has gained. Now I have the animitta state of mind, the signless state of mind. I am somewhere now. So he again overestimates himself. Labimhi animittassa cheto samadhisati sansatto viharati. So thinking that he is fairly a developed person now, attained person now, overestimating himself, now he start being with others, socializing with others, maintaining close relationships, having intimate relationships, getting involved with too much talks, chattering. What happened? Tassa sansatassa vissassattassa pakatassa basa manuyuttassa vihirato rago chittang anuddanseti. So Venerable Mahakottita explained, so when that person, that monk, dwelling like that, that means sansattassa, bounding with the others, vissattassa, intimating with others, pakatassa, losing his, that the conduct. Previously he has maintained a fair amount of disciplined conduct. Now he is little loosening his, and then vassa manuyuttassa, involving with too much talking. Rago chittang anuddanseti. Again the lust can basically come and beset him. So he gives a very interesting simile here. He assume that there is a forest, and so there may be a king who passing by that forest. Now before the king arrives, there are various birds singing, and the birds chirping is visible and it can be heard. But when the king arrives there to spend night in the forest, now he does not come alone. He is carrying so many elephants and other horses and various other his armies. Now a fair crowd is there in the forest now. Now because of the sounds of the elephants, because of the sounds of the people, the army, because of the sounds of the horses, now the forest become fairly noisy, so that birds chirping could not be heard. Now, Venerable Mahakottita is asking the question, would that mean that the birds chirping, the singing of the birds, the sounds of the bird can never be heard? No. When the king and the army left the forest, against the birds chirping, birds sound may reappear. Same thing with the practice also. He particularly mentioned here, talking about the animitta, the signless concentration. So in case we are excessively dealing with others, being with others, talking with others, having too many close relationships with others, getting involved with mundane activities too much excessively, then you may loosen the practice, not continuing the practice, not giving enough opportunity to continue to progress, ultimately all loosened, all previously given up signs, all previously given up defilements can again come back, can again occupy the mind. And you might even be strong. That's the kind of warning Venerable Mahakottita is telling. Now, interestingly, after this explanation was given, Venerable Hattisariputta, after some time, he actually disrobed. And then what happened? That close friend, that friend monk, again approached Venerable Mahakottita, and he is asking, Bhante, did you see Venerable Hattisariputta's mind? Even though he has all these capacities, even though he has all these attainments, he may ultimately disrobe. Have you seen by your mind? Or is there any deity inform you that this Venerable has these kind of capacities, but he may ultimately disrobe? Have any deity inform you? Then Venerable Mahakottita say, actually I have seen through my mind the mind of Venerable Hattisariputta. I understood even though he has the capacity like this, he may disrobe. And again, the deities also came and informed me. And this Venerable who had the discussion with Venerable Mahakottita then informed the situation to the Buddha. He go and inform Bhante, we had this kind of situation. Venerable Mahakottita explained like this. Obviously, this Venerable Hattisariputta actually has disrobed. Then Buddha has made a very interesting comment. He said, yes, he has disrobed, but without long, he will understand the value of renunciation. He may come back. So anyway, so this Hattisariputta again came back, and he understood the drawback, he understood the mistake he did. He again involved with the practice, not getting into the wrong associations, too much excessive associations, talking, etc. Now he is an ardent practitioner, continued the practice, and ultimately became an arahant. So the point here is that even the signless concentration, even these capacities, we can't take them for granted. Because still the power of defilements are still available, even though we can temporarily maintain the mind free from defilements. Even though the mind is pure, still the latent tendencies are there. Still the asavas are there. Influxes are still available. But at the surface level, mind is clean. At the surface level, mind is very pure. So that's the hard part. That's why we should not overestimate ourselves. We should not hurry to give certificates to us. Now, so then how are we going to overcome other defilements? Now, Venerable Rahula, Buddha's son, closely associate Venerable Sariputta, closely associate the Buddha, often getting advices from both of them. And there's a very interesting verse that Buddha has mentioned to Venerable Rahula. This is available in the Rahula Sutta of Sutta Nipata. There he mentioned, Animittancha bhavehi, mananusaya mujjaha, tatho mana bisamaya upasanto charissasiti. So the advice says, so you better develop this animitta, develop this signless state of mind, animittancha bhavehi, mananusaya mujjaha. Then it may be able for you to overcome the conceit. Tato mana bisamaya, by completely breaking through the conceit, upasanto charissasiti. Then you may be able to live like a tranquil, calm, peaceful person. So this animitta samadhi is a fair good opportunity for us to see how the comparisons happen. Eye-making happens. A personality happens. Mind-making happens. Kind of a self arising in ourselves. Say, for example, you will not simply say now getting prepared, packing yourselves to leave the retreat because today is the last day. And suppose now you go to the washroom and you see yourself in the mirror. So immediately the I may come up because you see yourself in the mirror. Because now you all are, listening to Dhamma, there is no that much of a ego or any kind of a self in you. But all of a sudden you see yourself, again that boosting happens. So likewise, so whenever possibilities are there, whenever our name is called, whenever we being praised, or whenever we being blamed, criticized, there are opportunities again and again that I comes out, a person comes out, an ego comes out, that we need to recognize. So these are kind of possible things. Actually, while we are maintaining signless state, maintaining a pure state of mind as much as possible, so we need to be sort of guard ourselves in a way. We need to look after our mind. So when this I, person, individual, myself, ego, coming out again, popping up again. So once it is coming out, we need to notice it. Okay, I am now not going to feed it, not going to promote it. Rather, I am simply recognizing it and slowly keeping it back. Kind of a disclaiming. So this disclaiming has to happen again and again. So another interesting thing is, so this I-making personality view can only happen when certain amount of grasping is present. Without grasping, there can't be I. Without grasping, there can't be a self, there can't be conceit. The grasping has to be a must. So in other sense, we can see where still the mind go and grasp. Where is any kind of an attachment? Is there any kind of an attachment in the mind? Any kind of an association in the mind? Any desire in the mind? Any obsession in the mind? So that means higher possibilities there are for I to pop up, a person to pop up, an ego to pop up. So without grasping, there can't be any I making. So that's why Buddha advised to Bahya. Now, how are we going to live? So the advice he is giving to Venerable Bahya, ditte dittamatam bhavisati. Now you are simply dealing in the world. You can see things. And when you see things, just limit it to mere seeing. So when one has developed a fair amount of vipassana, so this skill gets developed. It is not that we are trying to artificially do like that. It is not merely by sense restraint. Say when you see something, you can't simply act like a blind person. You may see. But when you actually practice vipassana, satipatthana, even though you see, still mind remain calm. Mind doesn't want to go and get involved. Mind doesn't want to go and get tangled with it. Mind prefers to be secluded. Mind prefers to maintain its peacefulness. So it's a kind of a natural skill that one may develop through the practice. So once you have it, it's a matter of maximizing it. It's a matter of enhancing it. So that's the advice given to Venerable Bahya. Okay, now you got to ditte dittamattang, sute sutamattang, mute mutamattang, viññāte viññātamattang. So you may see things, but keep your mind unattached, uninvolved. You may hear things, but keep your mind uninvolved. You may sense, or you say, you may smell, taste, touch, odors, taste, tangibles, but keep your mind uninvolved. And time to time there may be even thoughts coming, but just keep the mind uninvolved. So this is how you got to restrain yourself. Evaṁ hi vo bāhya sikkhitabbaṁ. Now, interesting point here is that if we are doing like this, then with respect to the outside object, that means the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, and the mental objects, we are not attributing a self there. We are not making a self at the outside. Say, for example, you see something and it is really beautiful, you being attracted to that, you being completely attracted to that, and you get absorbed to that. So you become that. One can say, okay, I am that. So you become that, completely absorbed to that. So that is where you made a self, created the self at the other end, the outside end. On the other hand, you can create a self this side also, in the experiencer side. You conceive thinking there is an experiencer. There is a person who is seeing. There is a person who is listening, a listener. There is a person who is cognizing. There is a person who is knowing, knower, experiencer. So you create a self this side. So both in a way going against the Dhamma. There's a very interesting principle introduced here by the Buddha called akammeta, non-identification, particularly highlighted by Ajahn Buddhadasa, one of the very prominent monk who lived in Thailand. One Ajahn Buddhadasa, he particularly highlighted this special quality called akammeta. How you avoid any kind of this sort of identification. It can happen at the outside edge, or it can happen in the inside edge. Either way, you identify with anything, something. So the point is, in akammeta, the point is, you are not making any self at any place. You are not being anything at all. You are not making any person at all. One will not be made of anything. Now, when we say, for example, say you take a steel plate. So we simply say, okay, it's a steel plate. It's made up with steel. It's a spoon. Okay, it's a steel spoon, a stainless steel spoon. So the material is that. So it's made up with that. Now, when our mind associates something again and again, say a sight, again and again associating, again and again appreciating, again and again valuing it, again and again attracted to it, the mind becomes that. So the mind is made with respect to that sight. So the mind being colored by that sight, mind being conditioned by that sight, whatever the object. So, is it possible for us to maintain a mind which is fairly pure, not conditioned, not colored by anything outside? Again, not purposely making anything inside, thinking that there is a person who is seeing, there is a person who is listening. So not making something like that either. That even last time we discussed, the typical past principle made by Descartes is that I think, therefore I am. So the thinking is there, so I am here. But on the other hand, there are thoughts, but there is no thinker. We have to now put ourselves to that track. There may be thoughts, but there is no thinker. If there is, then I'm a fool. A fool is still there. So if we make a thinker, then that's the fool. Let the thoughts happen, but we should not make a thinker. It's a very interesting part. We can see, Dhamma is in a very interesting way Buddha delivers us. So how not making a self. So when we attach, there may be a possibility to make a self. That's why we have to keep letting go things, dropping things, relinquishing things. So mind remain quiet, calm, peaceful, without making a self. So that's why while maintaining our, say, signless state of mind, we should be able to recognize eye-making, mind-making, any kind of an attraction, any kind of a desire, any defilement appearing in the mind. So those should be sort of visible to us, evident to us. We should be able to trace it. By knowing it, we should drop it, rather than making a self. Now previously, we might have prepared a self. Say, for example, say, as lay people or as monks, okay, we need a kind of a reputation, I need a, personality. So we have purposely developed that, we learn a lot, we had a degree, we had our occupation, we had our titles, we have our this and that. So we were very skillful in preparing a self. And we enjoyed that. And we used that even to look down the others. We made ourselves quite conceited. So now As Vipassana practitioners, now we have to completely revert it. You should understand, I mean, it doesn't mean that now you become no one and you allow everyone to, blame you and something like that. If there is a role, you can play it, but knowingly it's a role. So, for example, you are an administrator. So you have to go back to office tomorrow. Now, how are you going to work while as an administrator then? So when everyone else is under you, you have to instruct, you have to, sometimes control, you have to administer. You have to play a fair amount of personality there, definitely. Without it, you may fail. But knowingly, this is a temporary role. I'm acting. There's a very beautiful song recently. Actually, Bhante Dhammaji is the one pointed it out. Then I checked what it is. Rajinata anda, Raja Kumarita anda, Dikthalata anda, Lenchinata anda, Mama Nanda. So I was performing as the queen, I was performing as the princess, I was performing as the Diktala, famous character, and again I was performing as the Lenchina, but I am just Nanda. I am not any of them. Even there I am still Nanda, but Nanda also has to be let go. So we are playing, kind of different temporary roles. You as a father, you might have to play a temporary role. You as a mother, you may have to play a temporary role. You as an administrator, you may have to play a temporary role. As a senior monk, you may have to play a temporary role. Whatever it is, it's a merely temporary role for the time being. Just to do the task properly, once it is done, you have to become no one again. So trying to become no one also can be a someone. So that is also very tricky areas, these things. So you have to be careful. So the interesting point is, so we need to see how tricky this mind is, how tempting this mind is, and how sort of deceitful this mind is. When we were talented in one area, we might get caught up with another area. And quite often we are using our talents to prepare ourselves. So we have all of us, we have different talents in us. So these talents we may be using to make us self. Now we have to be careful. I mean, these talents are quite helpful to find a job, to do something, but we should know the sort of drawback also, particularly when we are in the Dhamma path. Now when we are continuing like this, now Buddha say what happened to our defilements. Assume that we understood the path, now we are continuing the path. Now what is happening to the defilements? Now let us back to the Chula Sunyata Sutta. So now there Buddha mentioned, Ayampiko animitto cheto samadhi abhisankato abhisang chetasiko. Even this signless state of mind is still conditioned, is still prepared. So you are maybe purposely being there. Still it is vulnerable. When the moment the mind go and attach to something, you lose the signless state of mind. And you may intentionally go there. You make a little intention, you make a little, that yesterday we discussed how to attain unlimited state of mind. You first have to make a kind of a intention. Okay, I better now put myself to that, my mind to that. So you purposely avoid paying attention to any signs, and then you pay attention to nothing, kind of blank, signless. So the kind of a mental activity is there. So that itself is, in Buddha say, it is constructed. And using that to understand it is impermanent. Therefore, Buddha mentioned it is anicchang nirodha dhamma. Anicchang nirodha dhamma. Even this is impermanent and it may cease. So the idea is you are not even attached to this. In a signless state of mind is not for to be delighted with or not to be attached with. So you can see as a teacher, Buddha has never allowed to attach with anything. But temporarily you may have to hold it. Now, as we discussed already, one needs to first develop it. One needs to develop the, say, vipassana. Then you need to recognize the non-grasping state of mind. You further have to enhance it. You need to prolong it, maintain it for a long time. So that is something you have to appreciate. Then you switch into animittas, signless. You need to appreciate, you need to prolong it. So fair amount of work is there. Fair amount of appreciation is there. But once you are there, even that is not there to hold on. That is not there for attach with. The point is, if in case someone is attached with, he or she may start being there for in a kind of a quite unusually, effortfully longer time. It can cause kind of distortions. So the path has to be now very much effortless. So you are simply dwelling there. Effortless way you are simply dwelling there. Rather than effortfully with a lot of desire, lot of attachment, you will be there. It's a matter of let things happen naturally. Let the Dhamma operates in you. Rather you go out now. So it's a kind of allowing the Dhamma to take over and you become completely a passenger. Don't go and drive now. Just enjoy the trip. Be in the back seat, not in the driver's seat. Now, if we are doing like that, now Buddha mentioned, passevan jhanato evam passato kamasavapi cittang vimucchati. Bhavasavapi cittang vimucchati. Avidyasavapi cittang vimucchati. So, more you are practicing like that, seeing various defilements, seeing various fluctuations, seeing various agitations time to time happening in your mind, not promoting it but calming down, then all these influxes start fading away. So how are we going to recognize? So he mentioned, Ye asudarata kamasavam paticca tedha na santi. Now say for example, you had a lot of sensual desires. So you understood what is the state of mind when I had a lot of sensual desires. Too much thinking, too much planning, too much lustful thoughts, mind is fairly crowded, so many lust-related images. But now, as a result of the practice, you should understand the emptiness happen of those kind of lustful images, lustful thoughts, lustful desires, any kind of inner burning. Idea is, more the influxes are reduced, kama asava is reduced, then that related thoughts, that related mental images, that related burnings, that related any kind of other mental hindrances should not appear in the mind. Ye asudarata bhavasavam paticca te idana santi. So there may be bhavasava related cankers in the mind, bhavasava related, say, hindrances in the mind. Now, as bhavasava is reduced, those related corresponding defilements, thoughts, images should not appear in the mind. So you need to understand what is really happening in the mind now. So as we are progressing, previously it was so crowded, but now it is fairly empty. Previously it was so much burning, now it is cool, now it is peaceful. Previously it was too much thinking, excessive thinking, obsessive thinking. Now fair amount of quietude, fair amount of calmness, fair amount of inner silence. So comparatively you need to understand, okay, is there a progress? Am I going in the correct direction? Compared to previous days, compared to previous years, am I often entertaining kind of a peace, entertaining kind of a silence, calmness in my mind? Previously my mind was so much of full with plans. Is it now sort of satisfied, contented in the present moment? So likewise, we need to understand, is there any impact in the mind because of my practice? Because the bhavasava particularly, always driving us, giving us a lot of motivations, giving us a lot of aims, never being satisfied. But when the practice is operating, we have to find some kind of a calmness, kind of a peacefulness, particularly a kind of a contentment. I am happy, just being happy in the present moment. Let the future happen, but no huge plans. Whatever happens, I am just navigating with, but no huge plans. Not going after huge, so, kind of driving yourself as such, striving yourself as such, rather navigating through things. So currently finding out a lot of contentment, peace. And as it is going like this, so all that asava related burnings, influx related any kind of hindrances, those has to be slowly reduced. And the end, so the Buddha mentioned the end. So when all the asavas are exhausted, that means one becomes an arahant. Yatha buddha avipallatta parisuddha paramanuttara sunyata vakkanti bhavati. So the best form of emptiness, best form of signlessness is nothing but the arahantship. Now, Buddha mentioned this in the Chulla Sunyata Sutta. So that is the time you understand, okay, now it is completely empty of kamasava, completely empty of bhavasava, completely empty of avijjasava. Now remember how the emptiness is defined. When something is not there, it is empty of that. When something is still there, it is not empty of that. Now one has understood, okay, when bhavasava is present, that related certain amount of obstacles, certain amount of agitations were present in the mind. Time to time, at least, I feel some amount of agitation. Sometimes I feel worried. Sometimes I feel anxious, unhappy, because still the kamasava is operating. Sometimes again, some sensuality-related thoughts are coming. Say, certain lustful images are popping up, because kamasava is still operating. But as we continue, if we feel, okay, little bit of reduction in that. Say, 1 year ago, I had this much of things, but now comparatively less burning. 1 year ago, I often get angry, even though I can see anger, but now I become less angry. So like that, we need to assess ourselves. We need to reflect, as we discussed even yesterday, kind of a self-reflection, kind of an honest reflection. Looking back ourselves. What are the things still available in the mind? What are the thoughts available in the mind? What are the images available in the mind? What are the burnings, irritations available in the mind? So it's a kind of an honest reflection. Time to time, often, Buddha request us, invite us to do. So if we are doing such kind of a reflection, then may be able to understand, okay, there are no such obsessions currently available, as we discussed yesterday with respect to the Kausambiya Sutta. So those prapancha, those proliferations, overthinking has to be fairly reduced. Too much burden type of mind has to be reduced now. Say, worrying, regrets has to be reduced now. Too much planning, fantasies has to be reduced now. The mind has to become more and more purified. As Buddha pointed out in the Satipatthana, ekayano ayam bhikkhave maggo, sattala visuddhya. There is a direct path for the purification of the minds. Soka pariddhavanan samatikkamai. To abandon worries and lamentations. Dukkha domanassanam atthangamai. To abandon, to overcome say, various different kinds of sufferings and despair, that's a direct path for foundations of mindfulness. So those, what he has in a way forecasted, or what he has predicted, now we should be able to experience through our practice. Now, if we are doing like this, then Buddha say, okay, this is the best one can achieve. They are the complete eradication of the asavas, keen asava. So this is the genuine, undistorted, pure, supreme descent into whiteness. Yathabhucca avipallatta parisuddha paramanuttara sunyatavakkanti hoti. Sunyatavakkanti bhavati. So he's giving the best kind of a vocabulary there, telling, okay, this is the pure, genuine, undistorted, supreme kind of descent into whiteness. If there is any kind of a pure whiteness, if any previous arahants experience, this is what they have experienced. If there is any kind of a future arahants going to experience any pure whiteness, any pure emptiness, this is the pure emptiness they are going to experience. In case today, if there are any arahants existing, this is the pure state of mind there may be experiences. This kind of an assurance Buddha very clearly mentioned in this Chulasamhita Sutta. Now, let's come to another little point. One deva, one deity came to the Buddha. So he is asking, Bhante, there are these so-called arahants, they are still telling, okay, like this. Aham vadami tipiso vadeya. Mamam vadanti tipiso vadeya. They are using the terms. They are simply say, I speak like this. And they speak to me. They speak to me. They spoke to me. So they are still using the terms, no Bhante. They are telling, okay, I spoke like this. I am the one mentioned this. They spoke to me. So they are still using these terms, no? Is there still a personality view in them? Is there any still conceit in them? A valid question, right? So the arahants are, they say that they are the arahants, but they are still using this kind of terminology. Why is that? Very beautifully then Buddha gives an answer. Yohoti bhikkhu arahang katavi, khinasavo antima deha dahari. Aham vadami tipi sovadeya, mamang vadanti tipi sovadeya, loke samanya kusalo viditva, vohara mattena sovohareya. So Buddha mentioned, Yohoti bhikkhu arahang katavi. There may be a monk who is an arahant. Aham kinasavo antima deha dahari. He is completely rid of all the defilements, all the influxes, and he is actually holding the final body. This is final birth. There is no future births. He is an arahant. But aham vadami tipiso vadeya. He also refers that I speak, I talked, I mentioned. So he is also using the terms I. Mamang vadanti tipiso vadeya. And sometimes when he wants to refer that someone else has told something, so he may use the terms like, they told me, they have mentioned me, they have given something to me, they offered me dana. So he's using the typical, mundane parlance. Loke samanyam kusalo viditva, vohara mattena sovohare. But the interesting thing is, this arahant, this person, has skillfully understood the world's parlance, world's typical world, the words, vocabulary, typical convention. He skillfully understood that. Vohara mattena so vohare, and he is merely using it. He is merely using it just for expressions, just to communicate, not finding any intrinsic, any personality in it. But merely understanding, okay, these are merely words. Now, there's a very beautiful example given in certain other sutta. Now, say, as you, as parents, say your kids are there, suppose you have little kids, and they are playing. And now they have prepared a house. And not only house, they have prepared some party in that. a little house, Silangyak, a little house. And now they go and invite you. Father, come, we have prepared a house. Mother, please come to our house. And once you come there, they offer you rice, they offer you meat, they offer you there. Offering any kind of milk, or are they really offering milk, or are they really offering rice? No, they are simply using, okay, that just to indicate rice, they maybe take a little bit of, say, sand or something, and they tell, okay, this is rice. Then as the mother, what are you going to tell? Son, is this rice? Oh, no, you also enjoy it. Really, son, let me enjoy it. It's very tasty. So you have to behave like that, right? The same thing here also. So we are simply like children. We are using all these conventions. We are all using these parlance. And Arahants also may come and tell us, okay, this is the way, this is good, this is this is bad. This is the regulation, this is the time you have to come. All that. So they are merely using it. Something like that. So the idea is, therefore, so they also may use the typical parlance. They also use the typical words, typical vocabulary, but not adhering to it, not identifying with it. As again in the Samiti Sutta also beautifully highlighted, Akkeyecha parinyaya akka tharangna manyati. So they understood the vocabulary thoroughly. They understood the conventions as merely convention, but akka tharangna manyati. There is no person who is expressing. There is no person inside that who is using. They are not making a self inside. So basically like that we can understand the point here. So all this path in that sense is very beautifully explained by the Buddha. It's a matter of understanding the path correctly, practicing to the best of our ability, and get the maximum benefit. With that last note, I'd like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, that's all. Now it's up to you. So please, on the other hand, a final note, even though I explained the path, so please don't think I am an arhat. So we all are in the same boat. It's a matter of practicing to the best of our ability.